Pause, record. Oh, and there's record. 1 second.
Look in the camera a minute. Nice something. Now look in the camera.
Yes, you're
Is it
on.
recording?
You're
now?
on.
Now it's recording?
Yep. Say hello.
Oh, this is Lou Gross, and sorry for the little communication in the beginning between us. I'm a structural integration body worker. You can reach me at 310-285-8132 and www.BackFixBodywork.com. I'm the president director of something called Peak Performance Body Mind Technologies, where we move you toward your point of peak performance with integrated body protocols and body mind protocols which integrate your body. So whether you're an Olympic athlete for this kind of physical tape or a high school athlete, this will help you. And I've worked on both. And I've worked on kids as age 3 and people up to age 91. And everyone benefits from it, regardless of their physical performance level. What we're going to do today is work on backs, but more so how the back and the legs connect. A lot of track athletes and other athletes have low back problems. And they also have lots of legs. So we did a video before that shows you how to do backs and then how to work on the legs and the belly to balance out the backs, and I talked about what we're doing and why. Today we're going to work on legs, and in the structural integration bodywork system, which was developed by a PhD physiologist biochemist, we have a series of steps, 1 to 10 in the basic series, and then you go back over it to get deeper and deeper until you really accomplish the physical that you want. And the bottom half of step 1, or the second half of step 1, is for the bottom half. And then step 2 starts with the feet and works up. Step 3 works up here. Step 4 then works on the medial arches all the way up. Step 5 works up here again. Step 6 works on the back of the legs through the calves and the hamstrings deeper. And step 7 is up in the head. Then step 8 works on the bottom again. Step 9 works on the top again. Step 10 works on joints all over here. So what we're going to do is a combination of parts of step 1, then step 2, step 4, and step 5. Now normally if you were going to do a structural integration sequence, you wouldn't do that, but we're going to work on those areas so that you will know that if you're a coach or a trainer for, say, a sprinter, and a lot of sprinters get really tight legs because of their weight work and their running, or even I worked on a 10,000 meter Pan Am Games champion, and he also had very tight legs. So when people get tight legs, they pulled hamstrings, they can get pulled Achilles tendons because the hamstring muscle to go down, it's pulling on the Achilles tendon. And calves will be really tight because the hamstrings are tight, and you can't really release the hamstrings unless you release other parts of the legs, including going down further. So you can reach me also on my email, louySryoShin@yahoo.com. So first we're going to look at my model, and she is also a yoga practitioner. Yoga practitioners aren't taught how to structurally align bodies.
Go slow.
Hi, this is Lou Gross, and I'm a structural integration body worker. You can reach me at 310-285-8132 and also louySryoShin@yahoo.com. And you can also find my website at www.BackFixBodywork.com. BackFixBodywork. And what we're going to do today is legs. I have another video on working on backs, which also includes some leg work, which I explain why. But I noticed that there's a lot of athletes, and I used to work on Olympic runners and jumpers and college track team, and a lot of people get really tight legs. And that causes them to be misaligned and pull hamstring muscles, pull Achilles tendons, and so forth. So I want to have this video so people anywhere can follow the video and do leg work to loosen up. Nowadays there's a lot of torn tendons, pulled hamstring muscles, pulled groin muscles, and that comes from bunch-up shortness in the structural tissue. And so what we want to do is show you how to re-lengthen the tissue. Now there's two kinds of tissues that are involved. One is your muscle fibers. Those are the things that are connected to your nerves, which are long, thin rods in the belly of the muscle, hundreds of them, and they will contract and release, depending on what to do neurologically. There's also a putty-like wrapping, which wraps the whole thing, and my books explain this quite well, that you have something called soft connective tissue, which in the belly of the muscle wraps up and is in between every muscle fiber. And at the ends of the lengths of the muscle body itself, the ends of the lengths of the muscle fibers, this putty becomes thicker and tougher, becomes the tendons which attach the belly of the muscle to the bone. So you have all of this soft connective tissue in there, which is the same fluid that's in the blood, with lots of tiny little fibers. The problem is that as you make the physical effort with your muscles, it bunches those tiny collagen fibers closer and closer in the fluid of the soft connective tissue. And that causes everything to contract, so the belly of your muscle is shorter than it used to be, and the tendons coming off of it are now pulled taut from bone to bone. So if you ask your muscles to go a certain length, and that belly of the muscle is too bunched up, then you might even tear a tendon or something in the middle of the muscle body. So you really need to keep those muscle bodies long, and the way to do that is to do a manipulation and a stretching that lengthens the belly of the muscle, lengthens the collagen fibers through the fluid, spreading these little bits out further and further back to where they used to be. Every time you run or push your feet into the ground or jump, you're also compressing all of your collagen fibers from your feet all the way up to your back. So again, what we want to do is lengthen this up. Another thing to remember is that the back of the legs affect the front affects the back, the outside affects the inside, and so forth. And the bottom parts affect the top. So you really have to do a systemic release. You can't just do a specific one just for the hamstrings, because the calves affect the hamstrings, the adductors affect the hamstrings, the internal abdominal and the back affects the hamstrings. So you want to get it all to lengthen, going round and round, going deeper and deeper, and then it will lengthen. In the structural integration method, there's steps 1 to 10 in the basic recipe, and in that basic recipe, number 1 works on the top, which we're not going to do today, but it really does loosen this back up a lot by opening this up, and it settles people often back down over their pelvis. But my models already had that, so I don't have to do this, and it is also shown on my fixing tapes. And when you get this, then it's a little easier to work the pelvis. But then the numbered 1 on the bottom works the pelvis on the outsides, and then down the outside of the leg and in the back of the legs. Number 2 works from the feet all the way up. Number 4 works up the inside medial arches all the way up into the bottom of the pelvis through the thighs. Number 5 works the back of the legs from the ankles and heels all the way up the back to the back and head. And that's number 6, Number 5 works in the abdomen. So I described something about the alignment process before. I'll mention a little bit this time as well. But we want to concentrate on this 1, 2, 4, and 6 parts of this structural integration, so we can help you lengthen your athletes or lengthen your people in your family so they don't get stress fractures, torn muscles, things like that. Or if they just have a lot of pain, older people get a lot of pain because they're pushing, and even when they're tight. So you can loosen them up, show them how to do the stretching from the stretching video, and they will feel better. Now I want to show you a little bit about body reading. So my friend is going to come over here and stand here with her side to the camera. And we're going to look at the bottom of the body on the leg area more so. And I want to show you how we zigzag in the body. What you can see is that her calves are bulging backwards and her thighs are leaning forwards, but in the middle of the thighs there is a bulge as well, so that part of her length of her thighs is really bulging outwards, and it's not as long as it could be. And then somewhere up in here in the back, she starts to arch backwards. And then higher up, she starts to curve the other way forwards, and then the head tends to go forward off the shoulders, and many people have that. She has done a certain amount of work, and I've done a little work on her to lift it up, but she commented earlier that she tends to get neck pain. And as I described in the back fixing, that's because of tightness that starts down here and in the legs and comes and pulls everything forward, and then you can see that she has to pull her shoulder blades together in order to hold her chest up and then bring her neck back. But also you can see that the neck is leaning a little forwards, so that and there's a little strain in the neck muscles, but you can see that it's going to the forward part. And what we want to do is make the whole thing align, but we can't do that just in what we're going to do today. Today, I just want you to see how this works, and we're going to try to make the bottom part longer so that she can be looser, and maybe with just what we do today, it'll bring it back so that the calves are not as bulging backwards and the thighs are not as leaning forwards. Now we're going to do some work on the table. Now I'm standing next to my friend, and I want you to see under the legs here, there's a space on these. When I slide my fingers in while she rests lying down, I can get my fingers underneath. Another thing you want to try is to see if you can get underneath the back and see what kind of space is there under the back. And if you find there's a big arch in the back, which she does not have, then you can get your hand all the way underneath. But down on the legs, it's common to have this up through here, which means that the hamstring muscles along here and the adductor muscles on the inside are too bunched up short in the fascial length. Now we have the muscle fibers connecting to the nerves with the muscle fibers embedded in the fascia, but we want to lengthen the fascia so that those muscle fibers will lengthen back out in just when you turn off the nerve signals. They will automatically push themselves to get longer. So we want to be able to lengthen this, but what's up here is also affected by what's down in here. And it's also affected by what's on the side. So we're going to work this side, and some of this is going to be repetitious to the back video, but we're going to show you how to do the whole thing on this video as well. So now my friend goes on her side and with her facing the camera. And we're going to aim from the pelvis to the knees. And there are two big muscles we want to deal with, plus some smaller ones. We have this muscle called the gluteus maximus, which goes on the back of the muscles, back of the buttocks, and then we have some others which work the same areas, but they're on another part of the body. So you're going to see my hand, and I'm going to be standing behind her, into the ones in the lower leg. And these on the side also affect what's going on in the hamstrings. So we'll take the back of our hand in a loose manner, a loose fist, not a tight fist, and we'll bring it down and push it along the side of the back. And you can work through clothes if you do a short pushing kind of method. So you're going to push, 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 push here in the groin area. So we loosen it through to all the different areas. So that this entire system is looser. We'll also work from this bump over here called the greater trochanter, and we'll push it upwards toward the crest of the pelvis. And that's allowing us to spread the tissue upwards in a fan-like shape and pushing it up toward the front crest of the pelvis and toward the back crest of the pelvis as well. And then also the top crest of the pelvis. And this is a nice lengthening, spreading. How does it feel for you? Is it enough? Is it too much?
No, it's good.
And so when people are athletic, do yoga, have had this work before, it's easy to work on them with no pain. The tissue, the soft tissue just gives way. When somebody's very tight or they're very toxic, it hurts more. Now I'm going along the side of this bone that's sticking up here and pushing downwards, and over here pushing downwards. And then I'm going to work the outside of the thigh, going down from the bone along the outside of the thigh with my arm. Now, they taught us to go really long, steady stroke, all going down. But what I'm doing, just going right down the leg. But what I'm going to do is shorter stroke, and I keep my hand loose. I keep my shoulder over here loose, and I just push lightly or firmly, but a little bit of time. So I'm not pushing straight in, I'm pushing horizontally along it to get like a half an inch to an inch at a time to move. My arm stays resting on the thigh, and I push down. Now, a lot of kids complain, or they mention to me, that they have this complaint, so to speak, of a really tight IT band, iliotibial band. It means it goes from the ilium bone to the tibia bone below the knee. And that is connected to these two muscles here and here, the gluteus maximus, tensor fasciae lata, and knees. And that's a big point I want to mention as I'm working, coming down through here, is that this IT band, people try to work right on, some practitioners, but it's a tendon. It connects the belly of the muscles up above, bone down below. It's there to stabilize your hip joint and your knee joint. The problem is that it gets very bunched up because these muscles in here get bunched up. So you can't just try to work from here down. What you really want to do is loosen the bellies of the muscles and then loosen the tissue on the top of this tendon in here. So there's a lot of fascia here you can spread, and as I do it, people always feel that their leg tends to get longer. If it's tight here and you haven't gotten up above, then it's a problem in trying to get this to loosen. It will hurt more. So the idea is to work around this bony bump, which is on the outside of the thigh bone, and we're going to go all the way down and work. I'm using the elbow point now a little bit to dig a little further and just spread all the way down through this iliac tract so that she gets a lot more length. It just keeps wanting to give way, so I'm just going with it. Now I'm going along the outside top edge here of the top thigh muscles called the quads. Quadratus lumborum is in the back, but the quads, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and also the rectus femoris, which is a two-joint muscle, attaches to here, goes over the knee. So what we're doing is working on the outside. By the way, when the quads are tight on the top of the thigh, that's when you get pain right over the kneecap, because there's a tendon here and it goes all the way up to here, and it's going to, if you lengthen this down, then this is going to have room to go. Otherwise, it's going to pull this. People say that their kneecap bend needs to get pulled. And of course, in a symptom-oriented medicine, what people will do is just try to work on the kneecap. But we're trying to lengthen everything so it goes down and across and works into. Now, another thing I want to say while I'm working and doing this connective tissue work is that there are people who do a lot of what they call deep massage. And that's nice, but when they try to aim for making all of this muscle tightness release just with deep massage, it's really not the treatment of choice, because you just can't force muscles to let go when they're all bound up in fascia. Now I'm going to come around the back a little more with my hand, come down the buttocks, from the crest of the buttocks, and pulling it down. I'm grabbing with my knuckles and pulling through this back of the buttocks from the bone and going all the way down through the buttocks to the back here. And then I'm going to continue on and push on the bottom bone. There's a bone down here, and I'm going to push on this bottom bone, and when I turn the camera when she works on her other side, we'll just have her turn over, and I'll try to keep my body out of the way. We'll show you what you do on the back of the thigh. So now I'm working with my knuckles into the hamstring, pushing down in here, pushing down so it goes in the back here, and I'm pushing the outside top corner of the back of the side of the thigh, and I'm going to adjust her pillow here, and going to push in through the belly of the thigh muscle, the hamstrings, of which there are 3 of those, and we're through that bulge so it goes longer, and we spread it from the pelvis down toward the knee. And there are big tendons in here, and they tend to tear when everything gets very tightened up as well. Hamstring muscles are 2-joint muscles. That means that they cross the back of the hip joint and the back of the knee joint. And then we have this length, and you can take another deep breath now, see how it feels. Is there any more looseness? Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the rules of thumb is that when you loosen this area, and then the back here as well, it's going to loosen the side. You work the side, it's going to loosen up through here. You work the back of the hamstring, it's going to work the back of the torso. And now we're going to work, normally you'd have people on their back and do this another way, but what I do is I bring my hand down the lower leg as well. So we're going to push on the back outside corner, you can see, the lower leg, and just spread it downwards, coming down away from the thigh, and using the back of my knuckles, maybe the rear 2 knuckles here on the hand, and pushing and pulling through the tissue. So bringing it downwards and trying to get that outside corner of the thigh to lengthen. If you've done my stretching method, you'll know that we work the outside corner of the leg as well as the middle part. And we're pushing through, and I'm working on the back of the calf a little bit and trying to push as my other hand is holding it. So I'm pushing through the back of the calf all the way down to the ankle, and since my friend has a lot of tightness in shortness, but it's easy to push her tissue, then I make a lot of good progress. Again, I'm going to go on the hamstring and push off the bone on the bottom of the pelvis and push through the hamstrings to see if I can grab. Now she's pretty soft, so I can dig in. I can push in and pull, push in and pull it, push in and pull it, so that it gives way, coming right down. You can follow me on the TV or the computer DVD player as we come right down, and I'm feeling, when I work the back of this hamstring deeper now, her lower just relaxed. The hamstring holding up is pulling all the way to the Achilles tendon, is pulling the front of the leg as well. I'm going to work again off this greater trochanter, and I'm going to work again to try to push further, and I can feel that it loosens all the way to her foot. So she's had a lot of thigh tightness, and we know that because of the bump in the back of the thighs. It was all bunched up. Now we'll go in the front a little bit off the greater trochanter, this bump, and we'll slide along the front of the bone, and with my side of the arm elbow and pushing downwards so it works on the front outside corner of the thigh. And notice again, my hand stays loose, my shoulder stays loose, and I'm pushing it down. If you have another technique to use, you can also use that if it moves fascia. And then have her take another deep breath. And notice that it went even further. So a lot of people have tightness in the legs. I'm working up in the tensor fasciae lata area again, moving downwards toward the pubic bone from the side of the body with my elbow, section by section by section, inch by inch by inch, pushing it downwards through this little opening all the way down so that it loosens into the buttocks. And right in the groin area, loosening into the lower back. How does this feel? Is this too
Good.
painful? Is it
No,
okay?
It's not painful.
Okay. And then working again across the top of the thighs. And just at the very top. Now take another deep breath. And notice that when I did the front in here, it released more in the front of your belly. So down here holds the belly, and all around holds each part. From the bottom to the top, it holds the sides, holds the back. So you want to loosen it and lengthen it. Another thing you can do while we're here is you can take the outside of the foot, and from the back of the ankle, you can push right around to the side of the foot across the medial arch toward the toes. And relaxing to the back, take a deep breath. And we can see that there's still a little holding along the spine, so we can take the hand and go a little bit more toward the bottom of the hand from us, the medial side, grabbing the muscles, and I hold the leg so it doesn't get away from me. And I'm pushing with my first two knuckles to get inside the thigh area on the medial side. You might need a little oil if you're not able to slide through it, but we're trying to grab and push a ½ inch at a time. Grab and push a ½ inch at a time. And so what she's feeling, and you can do this also while the person's lying on their belly. And for those of you who are working on people who have tightness going all the way up to the buttocks, and when you try to stretch, putting your leg way up in the ear, lying on your back, which is a very common method, it can hurt this area on the top back of the thigh. So instead you want to be able to loosen from the ankle all the way up, from the bottom upwards. Now we'll have her stand up and check it out. Let's check that this is. So now we've got the back of the body facing the camera. And I keep checking that it's recording. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I'm just taking my hand and coming down off the side of the butt ischium. And also I want to show you in her back, there's a little bit of a notch here. You can see that there's a notch in the tissue, and that's because the leg muscles are too tight, and the abdominal muscles probably a little tight as well. So now we can go across it, and we can push on the tensor fasciolata muscle up in front, and pushing upwards and outwards. There's another way to do it where she lifts her leg up in the air and turns it in the manner of how the muscle works. But you can just have the person relax. Now we're coming up along the top crest from the greater trochanter bump all the way upwards through the side of the pelvis toward the pelvic crest. And coming along through here, off the back, and coming along further down the back of the buttocks. And again, now we'll work on either side of the bump, pushing downwards and pushing in the back downwards to spread the attachments of the muscles of the gluteus maximus and the tensor fasciolata off of this muscle, and attach the gluteus maximus and medius. And there are other muscles which connect the inside the pelvis to the middle bones of the pelvic area for rotating your hip joint, rotating the leg back and forth. And now we're pushing upwards through this area, trying to loosen it. And again, pushing the front up and grabbing. Now you're right-handed, correct?
Yes.
Right-legged. So, not right-legged. Like which leg do you kick a soccer ball with?
Right.
Yeah, so that's right-legged. When I invented that word. So what we're doing is working on the two legs, but you always find that one's a little tighter than the other. Particularly the first or the second or the third time you're working or whatever the person's doing. So through her habitual activities, the right leg tends to get more bunch from her muscular effort than the other side does. And then we can work the top of the thigh a little bit. So I'm working all around this pelvis, and one thing you want to make sure is you don't do just pelvis. Particularly on people who have really tight thighs, because then they'll start getting pains up in this area. You want to bring it all the way down the side of the thigh, the back of the thigh, the front of the thigh, and you want to get the lower legs as well into the feet. That's why I'm going to take extra time to help you get longer with all the stuff today for legs. And stretching, coming all the way down this iliotibial tract here. I'm going to get out of the way and show you again from this angle. Just pushing down here on this area below the buttocks area to grab it on the side and the back. So the side affects on the back affects what's going on in the side. Now I'm going to bring her leg a little bit back further so you can see. I realized in the video that since it was going away from the camera, it was hard for you to see. Now maybe a little bit easier. I'm going to come over the top on the table and show you what you can do with your fist. You can take the loose fist and you can push it down through this tissue on the top of the thigh, going straight down the leg. But it's much easier when you bend the thigh for some things, but this one we can demo it while she's just totally on her thigh. I'm substituting for that cushion here, holding her leg with my other hand, and grabbing this tensor fasciae lata musculature and grabbing it so it spreads lengthwise down the leg, not trying to bang, but try to spread it lengthwise down the leg. And as I do it, because I'm sensitive with my energy field, I can feel it's loosening up on her left side now. So now we'll put this back in here, and we'll go on the back here along this line, just going down the leg. We're going to move the leg a little bit and go down the leg in this angle. Just coming right down the leg, going toward the knee on the back of the thigh, pulling the tissue. And I can eventually now feel it giving way, pushing my arm through the back of the thigh. When I was on the other side, since I'm only using my right hand, I was using my fist, a loose fist. Remember, the hand stays loose and the shoulder stays loose when you push down through it, not straight in, but push through it. And we're grabbing the thigh, back of the thigh, and we're pushing straight along the back of the thigh. Now remember, we did the other part where we went along the gluteus maximus, so we can pull downwards on the gluteus maximus, coming across the bottom bone of the pelvis, the ischium, where the hamstrings attach, going way up. And then we'll push downwards along the bones to bring it right through the buttocks area. And I'm feeling it loosening even in the front of her pelvis a little bit, which is what's supposed to happen. The whole thing gets looser and longer, and we're trying to correct that zigzag by loosening this. If this stuff is very tight, I'm going across the side here, right over the greater trochanter, and then down, we'll do with the arm again, right on the top corner of the thigh in the back. And if you work all the different areas, then what you're going to get here is we're loosening this tightness, which was fixating her in the shape of her zigzag. So we showed how those legs were leaning forward, the calves bulging backwards. It's all fixated in the shape of the fascia. So the person could be floating in the space shuttle, asleep, and still have that same shape. We talk in this business about people needing to be aligned with gravity. I'm going to go around the other side. And we're going to work here, and we're going to along this part, like I showed before, and we're just working this front corner side of the quads where they meet to the tensor fasciae lata here. And that helps to loosen all the way up into the side of the pelvis. So we are working to lengthen this fixated shape of the fascia. And bringing it down, if you get a certain amount on here, you can go along the outside of the bone to the rear of the lower leg. So, or even the top of the lower leg we're going to work on. So you're going to take your hand along through here, outer edge, then you're going to work through here, and you can come down through here. Now in the school, they teach you to go upwards, then work to downwards here, and then work this. But sometimes these are so bunched up on maybe half the population that you release some of this, and it releases down there as well. So we'll also work through here, coming down the back corner behind the fibula bone, and work it so that it starts to loosen. Now normally they have this being done after you do the front of the lower legs and some other things, but I find it helps people, if you're here and you can do the whole thing, start them by loosening that and work the back of the thighs as well. Pushing into the bellies of the thighs. Into the vessel going toward the knee, and into the torso. She feels it looser. Going down in the lower leg now. Again on the outside of the foot somewhat. So we can come up below the ankle and work the outside of the foot with the back of the hand being loose. Pressing with the arm, pushing, keeping the shoulder relaxed, putting your mind in your pelvic joints, spreading it across. And down the side. Coming down off the bone, off the pelvis. And I'm feeling a tensor fasciae lata giving way better once we did a little more in the lower leg. And once we did around the hamstring, we're getting it to give way a little further. And working the front corner of the thigh again, and coming down the side behind and on this bone. That's it. And we'll see how this feels. Now we're going to look at the lower legs and the feet. And we're going to just start working from the lower legs and feet upwards. There's another stroke you can do on the hamstring. I'll start with that. You can try to separate the bellies of the biceps femoris by the person bringing your knee up in the air, and then it goes toward the chest, and you hold the outside of the lower leg here with your hands, please. Just up above like that near the knee. And as the person pulls back like that, then you work in the thigh area, in the back and here with your elbow to try to separate the bellies of those muscles. So this leg comes up a bit, and you slide your elbow in the middle of this notch. In here, there's a notch kind of thing in the muscles, and you push in here, and you use your elbow to kind of push in and spread downwards. 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 And working through this area, there's a lot of tight musculature, and you're trying to get in here between these muscle bellies. So as she pulls downwards, and then you can bend the knee a little more. And what we're doing is trying to dig in, and it's hard in here, so we know that the hamstrings are kind of hard. And we're pushing in, try to dig further. Now we'll go to the, and then we can get it further up toward this top of the thigh bone, and you can work in here with your hand and push along this connection a little more than we did before, and that will loosen the hamstring connection to the pelvis. You can also push in here, and you can bring your hands up on your knee and pull it toward you, not just the foot, but just use the knee, and pull it in there. And then we'll also work in here. Now this is a yoga person, so she's pretty flexible in that hip joint already, and then we made it longer still. And so now we're working in through that adductor area to try to spread it downwards. And loosen. And let the leg drop. And we'll go on the other side as well, with the knee coming up. And you can just rest your arm in there, in that notch, and pushing in and grabbing it to pull downwards. Pushing in and grabbing it to pull downwards. And working to the bottom of the thigh. Pushing downwards through. And on the inside here. And on the outside. And working down the outside of the leg. On the back here, we're working into this leg, paying attention deeply inside. And then you can have the person lift up again, and again work in that notch. You can work along with me, pushing in that notch to open that back up between the belly and hamstring. And this left leg, since she's right-footed, the left leg is a little bit easier to grab and to spread. And we're working deeper still to get it to loosen further, so you can see that you really can spend a lot of time working deeply into the muscles that'll work even into the buttocks here. Now you can let this leg come down and feel
Good.
looser.
Much.
Okay, now I'm going to do a little more on the right leg, same way, knee comes up, and push into this gap. And grab now. Sometimes when you do the other leg into the buttocks, it takes a little bit of the tightness off from where it's up at the top pulling. It's up at the top pulling. So it pulls it around. It goes from one leg around to the other leg. And so if you use one leg, sometimes it gets it better. And there's also connections into similar areas of the brain close by, so that when you release one tightness, the musculature area for the other muscle tightness releases. So like the right leg and the right arm, or the right leg and the left leg in the same area, upper thighs or down the lower legs. And now I'm getting it so that it does lose further inside this way. You can even push your elbows sideways to try to open that gap up a little bit between the muscles and pushing it through, keeping your hand loose, keeping your shoulder loose, but going right into the going through. And pushing towards to get it to go across. And working it across the leg, in the thigh. Pushing now, kind of throwing my arm into the harder fascia, the harder putty, in the bigger part of the thigh muscles toward the bottom of the buttocks. And working across the buttocks bone on the bottom, so that these muscles, and it's now loosening into the back of the body, into the neck. And now you can bring your leg down and take another deep breath. And while the person is on the belly here, you can go around with your hand right on the front of the thigh again and bring it down across that tensor fascial lata area and on the top of the quads. This is not the typical way you do it, but you can do that and come across on here and come down on the front. This will loosen the front of the hip joint a little more. Remember, we have to do the lower legs, which is what we're going to get to right next. And then we're going to come up into the adductors and further into the muscles. But we've been going pretty deep already, much more than a deep massage would go. And we're lengthening fascia. Now we're going to work in the area of the feet and legs. One of the things you can do is work right over the front of the foot and down the top of the foot. And going over the top of the foot, down the bones. And the outside of the lower leg. And again off the knee and the outside of the shin. Between the tibia and the fibula bones. So we're just going to come along, grabbing through this tissue and working in here to pull that front of the lower leg downwards so it loosens toward the foot. And then on the bottom of the foot here. And then behind here on the foot, you take your hand and you work the bottom of the foot from the toes back. And if you want, you can have a person just lying in their belly with the foot kind of flat over on the table, and you can work it that way too. But you can grab this like I'm doing with my elbow and pushing it down. And pulling those outwards. You can do that, or you can push your fingers in between the toes area. When you can come back along this medial arch and along the base toward the heel as well, with your fingers grabbing into that area on the bottom of the foot. So you're working in here with a loose fist, but using your knuckles and getting a feel for your arm to move it down through tissues. And then you can relax, take a deep breath, and we'll do the other leg, the other foot. And working down to the heel. And across the bottom of the toes and into the arch, foot. And by the heel, and by the toes. And you can come down here along the leg, pushing it downwards, bringing it down between the bones, pushing downwards with the back of your knuckles so that it spreads the tissue between the two bones, going at the lower leg foot from below the knee and down along the front of the lower legs, pushing it through so it comes toward the ankle and the foot and the toes. And you can pull on the toes, grabbing them. And so that you pull up through the lower left foot here as you're pulling on the toes. Then you grab on the inside of the, with your elbow along the heel, and you work deeper along the arch of the leg, and pushing in here further around the heel and up underneath in the back of the foot. Now you have the person lie on the side. So I'd like you to please lie and face away from the camera. And you bring your top leg forward and your bottom leg back. And this goes under the knee up there. And then what you want to do is you're going to work the calf. But first you want to work along the bone in here and use your fingers to push the bone, push the tissue away from the bone, push the tissue away from the bone. Loosening in the calf and pushing behind the bone. And then coming down again along here, pulling in along the side of the calf and grabbing through the medial arch and along the foot again. You can even do the bottom of the foot this way. And then you can work above here around the knee area. And again, working over the fibula bone, but not pressing too hard. Just grabbing that tissue and moving it downwards the foot. And then you can come over here on the side of the thigh and push in downwards along the muscles of the thigh. And the back of the calf, and in the bones here. pushing your fingers through the hamstrings now into the muscles of the hamstrings and the sides of the legs. So if you're working through here now, you can work into the muscles from the sides and pushing your fingers in through there and get them to open, and then you can work the posterior adductors, and that's before the hamstrings, not as far to the rear as the hamstrings. And the bony area goes there, and then you can work in the hamstring muscles going downwards across the back of the hamstrings. And then in the front also, I'm working into the quads on the heel or inner side. We worked on the outside before. And then I'm even pushing on the top of the quads from the side. And that makes it a little longer for her. And then come back down again along the bone where the muscle and the calf joins, and pushing in on the bone and pushing it out to the side so that it opens. And so that it loosens along the ankle into the calf. And now you can move your foot around a little bit. Now what we're going to show you is this leg is forward and the other leg is top and back. And again, you can dig your fingers in here and push the tissue away from the bone, getting it pushed all the way through. So it goes inside and through here, and then it releases into the calf muscles. So this being her right leg, it's a little tighter than the other one. And working down in through this lower thigh area, lower calf area. And pushing in with my fingers to try to spread it sideways and through. And also try to get it to come off of this bone. I'll use my thumb here and try to bring it off of the bone and spread it so that the area beside the bone feels better, and down the leg. And moving downwards, I'm using my elbows softwise to pull on this tissue, or my fist. And it's a little hard if you have to go in this angle. So you can have the person put their leg back behind, as I had before, and spread with the leg in the back position. The lower leg to the rear and the front leg, top leg to the front, and pushing in on the foot in the arch, and also in here on the thigh.